Hey there, everyone. Simon here, Simon Walker from Red Giant and Maxon, and we have Lionel as well here to run
Hello.
our content for us. So I'll introduce him properly in a second, um, but just whilst we're getting started, just make sure all the setup is going okay. And here's a question for you. If you are logged in, could you just say hi on the questions box and just say that you can hear us and you can see the screen and that it's all working okay? Hi there, Stefan. Thanks for sending a message. Thanks, Darren. Thanks, Dominic. Thanks, Jonas. Thanks, Malik. Excellent. It's all working. This is good. Great. And one housekeeping thing. First question of the day from Stefan. Yes, we're recording this. In fact, we're recording this right now. So here, in fact, on this document, this PDF that we've got here, just details the sessions that we've got running this week. And you're already logged in to this one, but this same link that you used as a registration is also the link for the recording. So you'll get that recording automatically by email shortly after we finish this webinar. But if you wanted to share that recording with anyone you know who you thought that would find this useful, then that's the link for it. So it acts as a registration link and as a recording link. And also, this document, this PDF, is contained in the handout section of the webinar software interface. So at the bottom of your interface, you'll see a little button that says handouts. And in there is this PDF, and you'll be able to download this document if you want to register for the other sessions that are coming up tomorrow and Thursday. And all the links there are live links. And also importantly, if you want to contact us for any follow-up sessions, here's the contact, simon@redgiant.com. And what we've done, we usually do these types of webinars for the volume customers, for all the Red Giant tools. And since we've merged with Maxon, then this is why we've invited you, so that we can share some of these sessions. And if you've got a team of you that would like a follow-up session, maybe with Lionel, or depending on the time zone you're in, then please let me know, and then we can set up one for your team. And these are complementary with the volume program licenses. And also, I must say thank you for attending today. I know that it's an interesting time for everyone, and it could be quite difficult managing all those different aspects. As you can see, both Lionel and I are operating from home today. So thank you for that. And if you do have any questions about getting hold of the tools, or if you want to extend your trial license, for example, let me know, because we've got programs for that as part of the shutdown that's happening at the moment for everyone. But let us know if we can be of any help. Just send me an email. Great. Okay, well, we have a whole packed program that Lionel Vicidomini has put together for us, and he's one of the most talented After Effects and Cinema 4D and Trapcode users that I know. This is why we've invited him to run these sessions for us. So thank you, Lionel. I'll hand over to you, and I'll tell you what, I'll share my screen, change presenter, and send it to you. Lionel also runs the amazing, or is involved with running the amazing Motion Cafe. So it's worthwhile just mentioning a couple of things about that just before we start. You should have my screen now, or you should have the ability, there we go, switched over to your screen.
So you can see Cinema 4D. I'm going to show Motion Cafe. So yes, hi, I'm Lionel Vicidomini. So I'm a French motion designer. I'm based in Paris. English is not my native language, so you have to bear with my accent. And let me just present to you Motion Cafe. Motion Cafe is a French community, but actually international community. We would like to be international community about motion graphics. And we run a website here. You can see motioncafe.com. So obviously it's in French, but there are a lot of cool stuff inside. There are some tutorials you can see here. So obviously most of them are in French, but a few are in English. We have, for example, here 5 tips on Cinema 4D by Zhao. I don't know exactly how to pronounce his name. He's a very talented Chinese motion designer artist, and those are tips recorded in English. We also have some freebies you can grab. We are a partner with AE Juice. So we even have a whole pack done with them. So feel free to browse the website. You are very, very welcome. Okay, and so we are, yep.
Oh, that's motioncafe.com with a hyphen in between motion and cafe, yes?
Yeah, that's it. Motion Cafe with a
There we go.
hyphen.
Great. Okay.
Okay,
Lovely.
and now,
Okay. Well, over to you, Lionel. I'll turn off my webcam and let you take over.
so today we have a very tight schedule because I'm going to show you a lot of tricks. I'll have to summarize a lot or maybe to skip a few things. We already run one session this morning. I had to cut off a few things. I'm going to try a bit differently here. So to show you the result, we're going to, it's the making of and the walkthrough of a motion clip I did. Maybe Simon, you can show it, or can I do? Yes, uploaded video. So I'm going to show to you the end result here. I'll run it again now. To this one. Okay, so obviously this is 3D. This is done in Cinema 4D, but all the welding effect, the sparks, the flare, and etc., has been done on After Effects. So that what's interesting here is how to blend Cinema 4D and After Effects. I've been using After Effects for nearly 20 years now, so that's the first software I learned. I train a lot of people with After Effects. It's still a tool I use every day, and I've been doing 3D for almost 15 years now. And more and more, I use 3D as a main tool, but I can't. I still love After Effects. I use it daily, and I like to blend the two software together. So if I can do something in After Effects, I do it. If I can do something in Cinema 4D, I do it, and I try to enhance whatever 3D I do with After Effects. So this project is a cool example because it can't be done without Cinema 4D or After Effects. All the welding you can see here is done in After Effects. All the 3D is done obviously in Cinema 4D. So if that's the final project. If we're going to see here the actual shot, I'm going to go inside a shot. We can see here those layer here are the welding layer. So this is the raw 3D. Actually, it's not the raw 3D because there is also no light factory, there is looks, and we have the welding created on top of that inside After Effects. So it's a very nice way to work because it's iterative. I can change a lot of things about the welding, work on the look, because in 3D it's always very long, very difficult. So I'll break this in two parts. The first part in Cinema 4D, I'll try to not to keep it short, half an hour, and the other part in After Effects. So let's jump to Cinema 4D, where you can see here one of the shot, the first shot. Actually, the scene is pretty simple. The setup is simple already. It takes quite some time to put in right, but the core principle is really simple, as you will see. Okay, so start a new project, new blank project, and let's go. So I'm going to create a text with a spline, the spline text. And I want to stress that you can do that with any spline. So it could be a logo, it could be a text layer, it could be just a free form you do with the spline text. Here I'm going to use a type, and we'll use just the A and it can be any font, but I'll use the Roboto Black in regular because it's a big fat font, so there's plenty to work with. Okay, now I'm going to put it inside an Extruder Generator. In the very first version of that, the very first instance of this tutorial, we had before Cinema 4D R20, you really had to craft your 3D model by drawing almost every polygon by hand. It was a lot of work and very long, very difficult to do. Now we have the volume builder, which is a very great tool that allows us to go much faster. So that's only for Cinema 4D R20 and R21. I'm here on the R21. So let's go. I have my extruder, D4 extruder. I'm going to use here the volume builder. So I have that, which are voxels. I'm going to switch it to 1 centimeter. I hear someone who didn't turn off the mic. Maybe it's no.
It's all right. It was Jonas. He's muted now. Don't worry.
Okay, thank you. Because I had some strange noise in the headset.
That's all right.
Very distracting. Okay, so where was it? So we have the volume builder, and this is voxels. So voxels are not 3D polygons. They can't be rendered. If I try to start a render, I don't see anything. So I had to put it inside a volume mesher. That's the standard workflow every time you use the volume builder. So now it's done, but as you can see, we have some aliasing here. You see some steps. So we need to use inside the volume builder to add an SDF smooth layer, which is Gaussian. It's going obviously to smooth, maybe a little too much. So I'll reduce it to voxel distance 1. And now we have a nice font, nice 3D font. And what's interesting, if I switch to polygon, to the grow shading here, lines, you can see we have a very evenly distributed quads. It's quads everywhere, even here. It's very uniform. That will be great when we are going to use the Sculpt brush to create the carving and the welding. Okay, so let's go back here to. Now I'm going to create a beveling effect here because I want to have an outline here. We can do it with the volume mesher. I'm going to put that inside a null and use a displacer. So displacer modifier here. And in shading, in shader here, I'm just going to use a plain color. So it's going to push up the polygons along the z-axis. So it kind of makes a balloon effect. So that's not very interesting for now because I didn't restrict the effect where I want. In the displacer, you can see we have a fall off. In the fall off, we can use the fills. And the fills are by far maybe the most awesome addition that we've had on Cinema 4D for years. They appeared on the R20. They are really nice to work with. So here in the fall off, I'm going to use the very same spline text I already used. So I'm going to drag that spline text here. Okay, it doesn't do much. Well, it does something, but it's very strange because on the text field, now it's a field here, I need to change the spline shape to curve, from curve to mask. And then from mask fall off, not outside the mask, but create a fall off inside the mask. You can see here, it makes sense. I need to create a fall off inside the font, not outside. Okay, so inside, I turn everything back on, and voila, we have our beveling. And now it's just a matter of increasing here the distance to create a real bevel. Okay, and that's really interesting because it's not a visual effect, it's real 3D. It's a real bevel, as you can see. It keeps very smooth because we use the volume builder and the volume measure. Okay, so we have that. That's very nice, very interesting. And now we can already start to work on the sculpting. Okay, so to work on the sculpting, I need to convert this whole object to a 3D object, editable object. So we have the command here. I take the null object, go there, and current state to object. So it's going to create a copy here. So I can just hide, disable and hide this one. And now volume measure here on which I'm going to work. Okay. Let's switch to the sculpting layout. So the sculpting layout here is going to give us tools to work with. So I really love the sculpting tool inside Cinema 4D. It's not as powerful as ZBrush, but it's very easy to use, very easy to learn, and you can do very advanced stuff without too much hassle. It's really nice. If you want to do extremely complicated thing, go to ZBrush, of course, but with those tools, you can already do great things inside Cinema 4D. So that's what we're going to do. I have selected my object and I need to make it editable for the sculpting. So I'll hit on subdivide. And now I have here the mode, base object, and I can add layer. If I look in my object manager, my volume measure here, my object has now a sculpting tag here. Okay, so go back to the sculpt layer and I'm going first to increase the poly count because it looks like we have many polygons, okay, but that's not that much. When you are going to sculpt, you need to have a very high topology, many polygons. That's not nearly enough. So we're going to subdivide, and you can see here we have now 100,000 polygons. That's a lot, but still not enough. I'm going to subdivide again, and we have 500,000. Okay, 500,000. That's pretty dense, and that's enough already to start to work on the font. Okay, so I'm not going to create the welding just yet because I want to make the font look like something handcrafted, something that has been forged actually. So in 3D, very often the object you have is too bland, too linear, too smooth because it's 3D, it's too perfect. So we're going to alter the look of that. We're going to add some flow, some mistake to make it look like a real world object. And the sculpting tool are just great for that. So we'll try to use, for example, the pinch tool, the pinch brush, which does some pinching. So it's very straightforward. I have the brush here. If I start, you can see it's pinching. Okay, that's obviously too much. So I just Control Z, and we're going to reduce the size of the brush and reduce the pressure. So I'm doing that by keeping the middle mouse button pressed and sliding left, right, up, down. And actually, I'm using a Wacom tablet. So maybe a bit smaller. And now I'm going to create the pinching. Now you see, it's not uniform because I'm doing it by hand. That's just the idea. It's to create some kind of handcrafted look. So I'm creating the pinching. And the idea is to not to have the same pinch everywhere, so I can increase the size of the brush and work on parts of the font more than other parts. And obviously, I should spend more time on that, but I won't be doing that because I don't have time. So this is the pinching. And I can try something else, which I really love, is the scrape. The scrape is going to flatten, not exactly flatten, but we'll see what it's going to do. It's going to scrape. So scrape, and here it is. You see? That's very nice to create some kind of hammering look. So I'm going to add a few there, decrease the intensity, and working on the look. And the idea is to show here some kind of blow, the blow of the hammer. And you see already it looks less 3D. It looks like a real object because there is some flow created everywhere. So to be honest, in the real world example, you saw the film, the final film. I took nearly 1 day working on that, and I would say 1 day is almost not enough because you have to really toil on it to make it look good. It's like when you're drawing, you have to take your time. You have to make trial, to make mistake, to achieve the look you want. Obviously, in half an hour, I won't get much out of that. So I'm just trying to show the concept and add a few detail on this way. Basically, the final project will be done exactly the same way, but with more time, more thinking, more trials, and so on and so on. Okay, so you see it worked already because our A is not so linear as it was before. Okay, so that's the first part. It looks
just before you move on to the second bit, Lionel, we had a question from Alvaro. It was about GPU and CPU usage as when you were playing the animation. And he was wondering whether your version of Cinema 4D was using GPU or CPU.
For the viewport here, well, I'm using here obviously the enhanced OpenGL, so this is GPU, but I don't find there is a big difference between. I have a laptop with it has a good graphic card, but not as powerful as my primary workstation, and this project just goes fine with it. So it's pretty neat. The most important thing I would say is to have the most recent Cinema 4D because there was some pretty big increase in the performance in the last iteration of Cinema 4D.
Fantastic, thank you. And Darren also came in with a nice comment saying that Redshift is GPU based, but all the Cinema 4D native renderers are CPU, but you are using GPU in the 3D viewport, as you just mentioned.
Yes, this is GPU, yeah.
Fantastic. Okay, sorry to interrupt, please.
Carry on. Don't worry, no problem. So now I've done that, I'm going to work on the welding, so the most interesting part, I guess. So the welding, I'll need to increase again the count, the polygon count, because we have here 500,000. That's still not enough. Actually, I'm not going to do it right now. We'll see why we need to increase the poly count. So to create the carving, I'm going to use a trick and using a preset we can find in the content browser. So that's another great stuff with Cinema 4D, the content browser, which has a lot of presets, scenes, feature, and so on. So this is in our R21. There was a big cleanup in R21. Now it's presented like that. It's not architectural, visualized broadcast like it used to be. It's organized in a proper folder. And here I'm looking at the presets, okay? So not these presets, those presets. And here I have all the general presets of the application and of the software. And here we have the Sculpt brush presets. Inside the Sculpt brush presets, you have a lot of nice things. Like for example, I could go to the deco wood and use maybe this one. So I double click and that's a brush. I can drag on my object. And this is not a texture. This is real polygon. You see, if I zoom in, this is carved in. Well, actually carved out. So let's go back NA. So that's very, very nice to add detail. You see, to modelize, to model something like that, that would take me a long time. Here, I just drag something and voila, I'm done. Okay, so I'm not going to use that. We'll go back here and I'm going to use the scratches. And here we have a lot of interesting things, and those are the one I'm interested in. So let's take the scratch 11, double click to load it. And now if I drag, I have that. Okay, I have two problems. As you can see, we have that outline, which is very weird. And you can see here, it's aliased. It's not smooth because we don't have enough polygon to work with. So when you have that kind of problem, you can't really solve that unless you increase the polygon count. So let's go back. I'm going to subdivide. And we hit the 2 million polygons mark. And that's a good number. Cinema 4D is able to go higher than that, but it's going to get really sluggish. And it's a bit overkill for what we have to do. So 2 million, it's a good spot. Now, if I drag, you can see it's more defined. That's better. Okay, the problem with the outline here, I just need in my option, my attributes, in the stamp panel, and here the gray value you have to change to 0.5. And now it works. Okay, so I'm going to start to draw our example. With the exception, it's going to carve in. I don't want that. I want to carve out. So it will be control. Now it's extruding, you see? Well, actually, it's not extruding. It's pushing the polygons. And I'll start to draw on the edge of the beveling our welding. So it doesn't look like a welding yet. It's going to look like very soon. I'm drawing this way. I can draw the other way to break out the pattern. I can use other scratches we have here. For example, we could use this one, scratch 13, load it, gray value to 0.5, and here it is. And again, I should take more time doing that because that's not really, it needs to have several layers of this to really look great. It's too uniform. You see, I put several of them on top of each other, but I won't do that because I don't have the time. I just had a few and finish off this way. What's great also, it's more akin to drawing than modeling. And when you model, you're always worrying about polygons and so on. Here, I just draw my stuff and look at the result. It's like doodling on a piece of paper. Okay, so that's the base of my sculpting. And I forgot something very important. I just realized in my sculpt layer here, I didn't create a layer. So I had to go back, undo everything, undo. Yeah, and now create a layer. You'll see why. Okay, so I create a layer. I just redo it quickly. Maybe I won't even go as far as this one. Just try another one like Squatch 12, 0.5. And I'm creating the scratches. I'm butchering this, but you get the idea.
Just whilst you're on this subject, Lionel, we had a question from Philippe about using the volume mesher in the sculpting.
Yeah.
And he asked, why didn't you use the volume mesher? And Darren's answered in the questions about making the volume mesher editable in order to sculpt in it. But is that something that you used a lot, using the volume mesher?
Yeah, I really like the volume mesher because it's almost like sculpting, but it's another way of thinking. You just build shapes and you alter it with various tools. So you can do some very nice Boolean. Usually you can't really do Boolean in 3D because it doesn't work, or you have to, it gets very technical very, very quickly. With the volume, you can create Boolean, that is to subtract shape together, and it's going to be fast and to look great. The only drawback is it's going to create too much polygon, but that can be something good when you use sculpting, for example, because when you sculpt, you need to have a lot of polygons. So I find that the volume mesher and the sculpting go really great together. They are really interesting to be used both at the same time. And that's something that's something you can do only with R20, because the volume builder only exists in R20 and R21. Okay, so I recreated here my my stuff here, and we're going to transform it in real welding by using the inflate tool. So the inflate tool is going to inflate everything, obviously. I'll reduce the size and the intensity of the brush, and you see that's my welding. So a bit too strong here. And it really looks like a welding with those blobs coming together. So again, I should take more time with that, but you get the idea. You see, it looks like a welding. I can smooth the result by holding Shift to just smooth the part that are too harsh. And the opposite of the smooth is the amplify. Amplify is interesting because it's going to amplify everything I've done before, even the base work. So here, if I use the amplify, you see it's going to raise a little bit everything. And that's my welding. Okay. So now the interesting part, another interesting part, is how to animate this, how to make it appear along the way here as it's being created. So we're going to use a trick. That's why I had to create a new layer here, because this layer here, I can dial down. You see, I'm going to transform it to a pose morph, to transfer it actually. So this is here, Sculpt to Pose Morph. Let's click. Now, if I go back to the Object Manager, I now have a new object here, the volume measure. Okay, so we're done with the sculpting. So let's go back to the standard interface, standard layout. I'm going to hide my volume measure here. I don't need it anymore. And I have my volume measure. You can see this is my base object. So it's caching in. Yes, that's done. Okay, this is my base object before the welding. And the welding is inside this tag. When I select the tag, I'm in edit mode. If I click on animate, I get back my welding. And now I have a strength slider. Okay, but the real trick is here. The pose morph tag can be used with the morph modifier here. So I'm going to add it. And now the morph modifier is controlling that tag. And the morph modifier, as every modifier inside Cinema 4D, can use the field, the very same field we used to create the beveling here. So now if I'm going to add a spherical field, what happens? My spherical field is somewhere. I'm going to show it. Yes, it's here. And you can see a blending of my welding. So now if my spherical field, I just decrease the size and slide it here, you can see it's making appear, it's blending in the welding. So what I have to do now is to animate that spherical field along the path here. So let's do that. I'm going to disable the morph modifier because it's quite computer intensive. It's very heavy on the interface. When I disable it, you see it's very smooth again. And now my spherical field, we're going to animate it by hand along this way. So I'll try to be precise with that. So let's put it here and here. Okay. Now we're going to auto key. So usually I don't auto key, but this one I'll do it because I really don't have the time. And we'll start to animate our stuff. So I'll do it here at first. And you'll see I'm going to use another trick. I really don't care about the spacing of the keyframe. I'm just moving forward in the frame a little bit each time. And I don't care about the speed. You'll see why. I just try to follow the path. And you could use as many keyframes as you want. So I'm going along, going there, and very soon finishing. Okay, so now the animation looks like this. You can see it's not smooth. So let's switch to the animate layout. I'm going to disable auto key too. And here we have the track of the spherical field. I'm going to select it. And I have the option of the track. And we have here the constant velocity switch. When I check that, now it's going to move at a constant velocity, constant speed throughout the animation. See? So here I can move my keyframes. It doesn't have any effect on the speed. That's a bit strange also to do that, but it works because of that switch of the spherical here on the constant velocity. So I'll just increase the timing to 175 frames, for example. And now I can just take everything here and increase the time. So it's going to take almost 5 seconds to do that. You can see it's very smooth, the speed. Okay, now the last thing to do is just to decrease the size here. And if I go there and now activate the Morph Modifier, you see our welding. There is one last thing to do. As you can see, the welding is going to disappear outside of the sphere, of course, because it exists only inside the sphere. So I'm going to use one last feature of the field. I'm going to take here the Morph Modifier and add another special field, which is the Decay Field. So that's one of those weird fields that nobody knows what it's doing. And the Decay Field is going to leave the effect here if you put it on maximum and 100% strength. Now, if I go back and start the animation, it's going to be very slow, but you will see the welding being created and it stays on. It won't decrease here, thanks to the decay field at 100%. And that's it. That's how we do our welding. Okay, so that's the Cinema 4D part. I won't go through the Redshift setup because it's very long. It would take me at least 1 hour to explain everything. It's pretty simple stuff, really, but it's rendering. When you're going to render, you have to make test render, to wait. It's going to be long, so I won't do that here. I think we're going to jump directly to After Effects, where we can see now the welding effect made with particular. Just one thing to note, on Redshift, I use the AOV, which is going to create some render passes, so I can use with After Effects. So let's switch to After Effects. And I'm going to start with a new project to start from scratch. Okay, so I'll import the files are already rendered. So in render and the first shot. Okay, so this is OpenEXR files. That's very important. I work now exclusively with OpenEXR files because they are 32 bits. So they are 14 points files. We can have value brighter than pure white. So that's very interesting to work with. You'll see why. And OpenEXR is able to contain as many render layers as you want. So we have specular layer, we have reflection layer, shadow layer, whatever layer you want to have in just one sequence. So you see just one sequence. We have many things. With After Effects 2020, OpenEXR is fully supported. So we don't have to buy any plugin to install anything. It's going to work right off the bat. If I choose my first shot, I need to use here in the sequence option OpenEXR sequence, and here import option create composition. That's very important. Create composition. When I import it, I have this dialog box. I need to use it as a composition. I don't need to use pre-compose layer, but I do need to have that. Okay, I hit OK. And now I have a composition and the OpenEXR layer. If I open the shot, you can see we have all the layers. So all the layers are extracted through the Extractor plugin, which is a plugin you have inside here. I think it's in the Cody channel. Yes, Extractor here. And when I click on the layer here, we can choose which layer you need to use. So those layers were set up in Redshift, but it works with every render engine in the world. You can use it with Physical, Octane, Arnold, whatever. Okay, so I'll go quickly here because I want to show you the interesting stuff with the particular. One last thing to to use a real compositing workflow inside After Effects, you need to put your project, so the project you edit here, you need to be in 32 bits per channel float, working space sRGB, linearize working space. You need to change all three, otherwise it won't work, the color won't be correct. Okay, so I hit OK, and I'll go fast. I don't really need the RGB and beauty. I don't need the shadow either. The diffuse row is diffuse filter on top of the row. It's going to be on multiply. Okay, and those would be on add. And we have our composite. As you can see, specular, reflection, the GI. The GI is very almost served no purpose in this shot. Diffuse filter, and here the lighting. Okay, I'll just delete those, and I don't need this one either. So if I want to have more specular, more reflection, reflection, for example, I can use just exposure effect. I'm going to increase it, and you see I'm increasing the reflection of the whole thing without altering the lighting and so on. So that's very interesting to work with. I can modify the gamma. You can see the response curve is really cool. That's extremely interesting to work with. You see? Okay, so I'm going to reset it. There could be a whole webinar on that. But now we're going to, oops, what did I do? Let's go back to reset default. Yes, okay. So now we're going to create the welding effect with particular. I have only 50 minutes, going to be very tough. So I'm going to create a solid layer. I'll name it Sparks. Then I'm going to load particular. Okay, and particular, I'll solo it. It emits particles. I need those particles, the emitter, to follow along the animation of my welding here. I can do it using a very nice feature in the emitter here, which is to use a light emitter. And the light emitter, I'm going to take it back directly from the Cinema 4D file. So I'm going to use Cineware for that. I'll import the Cinema 4D file, this one. So this is shot one. Import it. And I'm going to import the shot here. So this is Cineware. It's going to load and show the shot very soon, I hope. Yes, here it is. And this is the light. This is a Cinema 4D light, a standard light I added in my original Cinema 4D file to follow the welding here. So when now I use Cineware and I extract Cinema 4D scene data, extract, it's going to create the cameras and the emitter here. I don't need anymore this shot, this layer, I can mute it. And I have my emitter with keyframes and my camera with keyframes. And if I ask particular now to use emitter type light, which kind of light? Emitter. That's very good because I named my light emitter, so it's going to work. I need to decrease the emitter size to something very small, 5. I need to use the direction in directional, so it's going to follow the my cone, the cone of the light. And if I increase the velocity, you can see we have our particle following the path. Okay, so it's very narrow here because our light is very narrow. So if I just hit AA to show the 2D option, I'm going to use the cone angle and increase it. And now I have particles that are spread out. Okay. Let's go back to my particle. And my particle now, they're just shooting straight forward and nothing happens. Not very interesting. Sparks are very, very thin and should fall down because of the gravity. So there is a gravity settings here in physics. I'll put it to 1000, which is almost the gravity on Earth. And now you can see our particle falling down. So that's more like it, but there's a problem. Sparks don't live very often. Actually, a sparks should live only half a second at most. So let's put it 0.5 seconds. See, we're getting there. But a sparks is just not just one point. It should be trails here, to be streaks, motion streaks. So how we're going to do that? By using the rendering. In the rendering, you have here the motion blur. I'm going to force activate motion blur, put it on, and you see we have our streaks. Okay, and it depends on the speed, the velocity of the particle here. So if I increase the particle, the streaks will be longer. But they don't really look like sparks, and yet because they're too thin, they are too light. There is an option here to use the opacity boost. But I'd rather use the ability, we are in 32 bits per channel, so I can use the exposure. So let's take the exposure effect. If I increase my exposure, it's going to make it more solid. And the last very important thing is to use the glow. And for that, we're going to use another Red Giant tool, which is the Optical Glow. Optical Glow is a very, very nice glow, realistic glow. So obviously here it's not really nice because we need to, my footage is video linear. We're working linear mode, okay? So linear, that's better. And you see it's quite intense. So that's because the exposure, I maybe dial it down a little bit, and we have the size of the particle, which are too big. Let's put it back to 1.5. Yes, that's more like it. And now we're going to break the pattern by making the size random a little bit, by making the life a little bit random. And we could also put some velocity random, increase it. So there are sparks coming up very fast and other very slow. And now in Optical Glow, we can colorize. Here you have a inner tint, outer tint, something else, the fall off. The fall off is the spread, broadly the spread of the glow. So I'm going to increase it so it's tighter. Yes, something like that. And the inner tint now we're going to use a bright orange. Okay, and the outer tint red. And we're getting there. Now, if I put it in add mode and everything together, we already have a good starting point for our welding. I'm just going to make a preview. Okay, that's nice. Something else we could do in the physics tab here, use in the air and use some turbulence field and affect position. So it's a bit random. They are not shooting so straight. Something else, I'd like to use turbulent displays. Turbulent displays, which are going to bend our particles. So I'll decrease the size, and you see it's bending, creating more chaos. Okay, so that's the starting point, but it doesn't really sell the shot yet. We need to add some real footage. And for that, I'm going to use another layer of particular. So let's create at first that layer. So another solid, I'll call it other, put it there, particular. And for this one, I'm going to go faster. In the emitter, we are using the light again, reducing the size. I'm going to put the velocity to 0. Okay, so now it's going to create some kind of streak here. And reducing the particle per second to 15, something like that, okay? And now I'm going to load some footage. So those footage, I need to import them before. So let's do it and have those shots here. So this is the sparks, another kind of sparks. So it's a movie clip, stock footage, the explosion, and the smoke. Okay, and I'm going to use first the explosion here. In particle, I'll use, yes, here we are, your particle type. We're going to use a sprite. In texture, I'm going to load the sprite. So to load the sprite, it needs to be in the composition. That's not the case. So I import those 3 files. I don't need to see them. Okay. Now in other, I go back to particular here. I'm going to use our explosion, which is this one. And the time sampling won't be random loop, but start split clip, play once. I'll need also
quick question, Lionel, whilst you're doing that. Sorry to interrupt. We had a question, where did you get your particle movie clips?
This one was from, I think, it's a very old stuff I bought 10 years ago. I think it's Action Movie Essential from Video Copilot, I think.
Excellent. They're also, for Tim, who's asking, you can also have these particle clips inside Particular. If you have a moment, Lionel, would you mind just clicking on Choose Sprite, that little button just up a little bit?
Yes.
There we go.
Yeah, we have a library with several preloaded sprite. So some are vector files here. And we have some movie clip. Those, I believe, are movie clips. And here we have smoke and fire and so on. So I could have used them, obviously. We have some smoke loops. That's very interesting too. It's preloaded with included with particular when you install particular.
Brilliant, thank you. Just as a last little comment on that, Tim, that inside the presets in Particular, you have the ability to make these particle loops that just like the ones that Lionel purchased. So you could use those, render them out, or even have them as a pre-comp and then use those as a sprite as well. But there's multiple ways of doing it. But sorry to interrupt, yes. Lionel, back to you.
Yeah, I could have created my own movie clip by creating a composition. That's it's very very easy to do that. Here with the movie clip, obviously it's easier, but you need to have the movie clip. So this is my explosion. As you can see, it works pretty well. I just increased, I put size random. Maybe let's go to 80%, and I use also the random rotation. Okay, and now I can recycle, use again these setups by creating other movie clip. So actually I could do it inside the system here. But to duplicate the system, I need to go inside the designer. So I'm going a fast way, but because I don't have much time, just to show you here, I just need to now for this one, I'm going to use the smoke. That would be start at birth, play once, and another one. So I just duplicate the layer. So I repeat, this is the lazy way. Everything can be contained inside those system here. And use here the sparks. And I need for each one to be in add mode, obviously. So they just blend with each other. And now that's a whole effect. And I should fine tune it. Again, I went a bit too fast, but you see the idea. I think that there is too much smoke.
It's all an artistic choice always
Yeah,
for these things.
too much smoke. Yeah. So that would be easy to correct by just altering this this one, and everything together. As you can see, it blends pretty well. Using everything together, and everything is controlled by the emitter here. So one last thing interesting, if I wanted to move the welding closer to the actual welding here, I could use here, I don't really need the point in interest, the Z rotation neither. I could use the, here, take my whole rotation. I'm careful to be on the exact keyframe, take everything here, and now I'm going to move on the Z axis, actually the Y axis, and move it down, and it's going to follow. And the very interesting thing,
stuff, Lionel.
if you create a last light, it's going to duplicate automatically all the sparkling for different lights. So you could have 4 lights with 4 emitter, 4 different emitter using those layers. So that's it.
Fantastic. This is great. I don't know how you managed to fit all of that into an hour. This is great.
It's difficult, maybe too fast. I'm sorry about that.
I think everyone appreciates that you're showing the concepts as well, and the requirement to work into these things is obvious, but it's great that you'll be able to put a whole piece together for us like this. And we've had a couple of requests for access to the source files. So I don't know what you think about this, Lionel. Perhaps it's something that you could share, or maybe you could share a simple version of it to show off some key techniques.
Yeah, well, the problem is I think the archive I shared with you, Simon, is 70 gigabytes. It's huge. That's the problem with the OpenEXR files. They are just obese. They are huge. It's so it's difficult to share. But yes, why not? I could do a slimmed down version. Maybe use compression on the OpenEXR. But or maybe one shot would be a good idea. So definitely something to I'm pretty open to the idea, but it's 70 gigabytes. So we have to devise a way to deliver
knock
that.
out all our internet bandwidth, won't it? Well, yes, that'd be great. Even if it's a simple little process like that, that'd be lovely and very useful. And what we'll do, we'll follow up with an email with that when Lionel's had time to put his ideas together for that. But thank you. If you wouldn't mind sharing just a little something, I think that would be very useful. especially in the sculpting stages as well.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah.
And Lionel, would you mind just sharing the screen back to me so I can share the links for tomorrow's session?
Yes, of course. So change presenter. Simon. There you are.
That's the one. Excellent. And we're getting some lovely comments in here. Thanks, Brad. Thanks, Stephen. Thanks, Marius. That was absolutely amazing. Thanks for showing much for this techniques. So well done. Thank you, Lionel. Just before we go, I just wanted to remind you that we have more sessions this week from Lionel. And 2 tomorrow, it's repeated tomorrow at 2 different times, and the same on Thursday. And these links are inside a PDF, which is actually in the software, in the GoToWebinar software, so you can download these links right now. But if you can't get them for any reason, or if you have a follow-up question, please let us know. Simon at Red Giant is my email address, and I can either pass questions on to Lionel or I can answer questions. For example, a common one is if you're using Cinema or the Red Giant tools at home now instead of work, and you want to find out how you could do that as part of an extension of your license from work, let us know, because we have a couple of protocols for that. We can help you out if in case you need to do work at home rather than in your main workplace. And also, if you've got any creative questions about that or things that you'd like to see in these webinars, let me know, because this has been a snapshot of the webinars that we typically run for the volume program customers. And these webinars and the custom training are things that are complementary for your team. So if you'd like to have Lionel run a session for your team, let us know on that email address, and we'd be more than happy to set one up. And some more just general questions or comments coming in for you, Lionel, saying how great it was. And is the recording available? Yes, absolutely. You'll get the recording very soon after this webinar ends, and even people who registered but didn't attend get the recording. So that's what you could do on Wednesdays and Thursdays sessions. If you register, then at least you get the recording automatically, just in case the timing doesn't work out for you. Fantastic, great. Well, thanks again so much, everyone, for joining us. And thanks, Lionel, for sharing your excellent techniques. And thanks also to Darren and Jonas from Maxon, who've been helping out with questions and answering questions on the question pod, if you like. Thank you. But see you tomorrow, hopefully. Don't forget to download the links for tomorrow's sessions, and we'll see you on the next one. But thanks again. All right, bye-bye.
See you.